Good morning everyone and welcome to Stretford Paddock. Welcome to the Paper Talk. We're going to look at all things Manchester United news. I am Alex and I'm outside a very cold. It's getting really cold now. Still no hats though, like I mentioned last week. Who is going to be the first one to break the duck? Who's going to wear a hat on the news? I'm still going Casey. I'm not sure. I think Jay Motti wore gloves the other day. I think he's showing a little bit of weakness, but I think Casey will be the first one. It's Parker weather, of course. But we've got all sorts to talk about this morning. Potential transfer stuff. Sky Sports had a look at some stuff. Manchester United's midfield. Manchester United's midfield seems to be the news at the minute. We'll go through a bit of that. And also Marcus Rashford. Soon to be Sir Marcus Rashford. He's been doing more stuff and there's a bit more news around Marcus Rashford. So starting off, we're going to look at Sky Sports had a look at Manchester United's midfield. And as I mentioned, I'm not quite sure why it's such big news. Manchester United's midfield, we've now got options and this seems to now be the problem. Last year we were crying out for footballers, crying out for creative players, and now that we've got some, and now that we're rotating players, and now that not all of them can start, this is the problem. The fact this whole Donny van der Beek thing has been a bit strange, but last night Gary Neville and the crew at Sky Sports had a quick look at why we play Scott McTominay, Fred and Bruno Fernandes so often. And what they mentioned was that in 9 games that Manchester United have played with those 3 all starting in midfield in the Premier League, we've had 6 wins and 3 draws. The other thing that happens with that midfield is it kind of releases Bruno Fernandes and he becomes the more creative player and becomes a lot more effective. Stats here, with Bruno Fernandes starting in the games, all 3, he's had 4 full games, he's had 2.5 shots on target, 3 chances creating open play, 14 passes into the opposition box, and 2.8 dribbles. Compare that to 1.1 shots, 1.7 chances from open play, 9.2 and 16. The stats are just 10 times better for Bruno Fernandes when he's played with Scott McTominay and Fred behind him. Now, everyone's kind of... The other thing that Gary Neville mentioned last night was, is there no way of us playing with a single pivot, having Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba slightly further ahead, and playing almost the way that City do with Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva last season, slightly ahead of them. And the argument to that is that, you know, Man City had to sign £200 million worth of fullbacks so that system would work. You remember this first season that Pep came into English football and they really struggled. They started with these inverted fullbacks, but they were playing it with an old Pablo Zabaleta and Kolarov, and it just really didn't work, and they get left really exposed, and they ended up signing 4 fullbacks to help that system. They also had Fernandinho, and he's an absolutely quality player. They've now signed Rodri as well for that position, and they are just natural number 6s, and whilst we've got Nemanja Matic, he's still getting on a little bit, and I don't think that Ollie wants to play him on his own in there. I think he wants a little bit of pace around him. And I think that he's comfortable, especially in the big games, especially against teams that have a lot of possession and against teams that definitely have a lot of success in wide areas. I think he wants to play with Fred and McTominay in midfield for a little bit more cover. And Bruno Fernandes at the minute is the number 10 that's getting the nod. Like I mentioned, it seems strange. Patrice Evra weighed in this weekend about how we don't need Donny van der Beek. He kind of corrected that a little bit, saying that he is going to be behind Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba. I do think that Donny van der Beek is signed there for the future, and the fact that I don't think anyone expects Paul Pogba to be here forever, and Donny van der Beek will get his chance at Manchester United. But it's a strange way of reporting things, you know, that Man United have had, a really poor result against Tottenham, but a fantastic result in midweek against PSG. And then Chelsea this weekend, obviously not the best result, obviously not the greatest performance of all time with the 0-0, but to say how bad United were, I don't think it's that bad. I think they were very compact. I think, especially after losing 6-1 in your previous home game, do you blame the manager for being a little bit more conservative, a little bit more defensive minded? I certainly don't. And I think that Man United are starting to get into a little bit of rhythm of things. And I think one thing that isn't being mentioned is how really poor Chelsea were. They had all 5 of their players that they signed this summer costing over 200 million play against Manchester United this weekend. And not once have been said that Manchester United stifled them, or Manchester United, or they had poor performances. It all seems to be around Manchester United's midfield, and do you know what? I'm getting a little bit sick of it. So next we are looking at some articles in The Athletic from yesterday, and they're talking about Manchester United potential transfer dealings in the future, and the name that's come up again and again, it's not Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland, another Borussia Dortmund player, and that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wants to strengthen his front line and still sees Erling Haaland as the future number 9 for Manchester United and the future top striker in Europe. And to be honest, in the article it mentions he scored 5 goals already in I think 7 starts this season. Ridiculous numbers already for Erling Haaland, and I think it is going to be the case that he is the star player that everyone's kind of after in that number 9 role as the striker in world football, and I'd love to see him at Manchester United. Laurie Whitwell writes in here that, obviously Ole was keen on signing Erling Haaland in January, didn't happen, and Borussia Dortmund ended up coming in, and the only thing that might stop Manchester United going in for a bid is that all these dealings with Dortmund and previous haven't gone very well. Jude Bellingham ended up going to Dortmund, and then you've also got the Jadon Sancho saga that happened this summer. Will that affect Borussia Dortmund's dealings if we do go in for Erling Haaland, whether that be January, whether that be in the summer, or maybe, as they mentioned, there is a buyout clause in 2022 for Erling Haaland. So obviously, in this article, it was mentioned that Edinson Cavani has had a positive impact since coming into Manchester United. He had a bit of a cameo against Chelsea, getting half an hour, nearly scoring with his first touch, which would have been unbelievable. It's wait to see whether he's going to get the start this week against Leipzig. Probably not, because of Anthony Martial's availability in the Champions League, but his domestic ban. But I do expect him to maybe start against Arsenal this weekend. The one thing with Cavani is that he has got his contract for a year and its potential to extend to 2022, which kind of fits in with the Erling Haaland buyout clause. Now, mentioned in this article is Manchester United may want to trigger it early and may see that they can't pass up on Erling Haaland, and they may need to splash the cash over £100 million, which I'm sure Mino Raiola will be happy about, and may have to splash the cash if they are going to get the striker who came from Red Bull Salzburg last year. So also in The Athletic, Adam Crafton reports that Manchester United are after a data scientist. Anyway, so Manchester United are closing in on appointing a data scientist to support research across a number of areas at the club. Head of Football Development John Murtaugh has whittled down a shortlist to a handful of candidates whose credentials will be presented to Joel Glazer and Ed Woodward for final selection. Industry insiders expect a decision to be made to hire within a month. Apparently it's going to try and fit in with how Liverpool do things with Dr. Ian Graham. Graham holds a Cambridge degree in theoretical physics, and his modelling has helped improve Liverpool's record on injury prevention, conditioning, on-field performance and recruitment. Not really a mad story. I'm not sure too many people will be interested in this, but at the same time, it does look like Manchester United are trying to strengthen around the football inside, off the field, and maybe taking a little bit of taking a little bit of responsibility away from people who don't really know football. Starting with data scientists, hopefully it moves on to people around the transfer market as well, and whether that'll be a director of football. We've not had that briefing in about 2 or 3 weeks now that we're interested in a director of football. Might be because we beat PSG and didn't have a bad result against Chelsea, but I'd expect that to come anytime soon. So finally today, ending on a positive note, we have to talk about Marcus Rashford and all the stuff, soon to be Sir Marcus Rashford, I'm sure of it, all the fantastic work he's been doing with school meals in the October half term, and you can see on his Twitter feed the amount of people that have got involved in that. It's unbelievable, the amount of businesses that have gone to help out Marcus Rashford. One of the things that got brought up yesterday, and this is an article in the Mail, is that he's not looking like he'll be on the shortlist for the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, which is unbelievable. He is actually the bookies' favourite to win the award, and it's not looking like he'll be on it. And apparently this is due to the lack of sporting achievements. Absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Marcus Rashford is odds on for that award and should be on there. Also in the same article in the Mail, they looked at the possibility that if they can't put him in there because he's not had enough sporting achievements, that they're going to have to honour him in a different way. And I think it's only right. Marcus Rashford has been fantastic in all the work he's done off the field, and has still continued to perform on the field. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, the goal at PSG, to do that and then to be able to go and do all the stuff he's been doing is unbelievable. Also on that, yesterday Manchester United released that they are going to be donating 5,000 meals to that cause and helping out local schools in the area. Manchester United again, off the field stuff, doing fantastic things, and I think that everyone knows how good work Marcus Rashford's been doing, and only hopefully it will continue. That's all from me for the paper talk this morning. It is absolutely freezing. Callum's shivering behind the camera, so we're going to go and get a coffee. Make sure you are liking, make sure you subscribe, because we've got all sorts coming up. We've got the game against RB Leipzig tomorrow night. We'll have all the build up to that. We'll have the team news, we'll have the watch along, and we'll have previews, fan cams, I think a tier 1 podcast not too long in the future. So make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time. Laters.